right now. Take it away, Bonte.
All right, we're getting to the Warriors in the 9 o'clock hour. Golden State Warriors basketball again. A couple days removed from the Bob Myers presser. We'll rehash that. Some thoughts on Joe Lacob. Thoughts on Steve Kerr. What does Monty Williams' deal mean for Steve Kerr? Is Joe Lacob ready to throw him the bag? Steve Kerr could demand up to $15 million a year. Monty Williams got a 6-year, $78.5 million deal with the Detroit Pistons. If he gets to a year 7 and 8, he can get up to $100 million. So what does that mean for Steve Kerr, who did say he wants to coach for a very long time? Also, we have a special King of the Hill today.
Oh, really?
Special King of the Hill. The top 5 ride or die guys in the Bay Area. Who you're riding with in the Bay? Top 5 ride or die guys currently.
Interesting. Sorry, I was in the other room discussing the heartbreaking playoff loss for Huddy and our boss Matt Nahigian in
What was
Little
the
League.
score?
What?
What was the score?
They just didn't score. That's part of the
score.
problem. They only scored 5 runs. The bats fell asleep. That happens.
What was the
Little
score?
League.
Final score?
I don't know. They hit. They didn't.
Oh, Huddy had a rough one, but Huddy did well.
I wanted to
this year.
give boss a hug. I've been there. You feel so helpless when you're coaching and you've practiced all this time. You're emotionally invested into seeing some of the kids it's not about winning. It's about just seeing them have success and play to their strengths because you know how much it means to everybody.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I mean, Huddy had a great year for the Red Sox out there. Marin County pitched well. Boston with Tam High pitched well. Man, he's got some baseball players there. He's got some good baseball players.
I know. It must be from the mom, Joey.
Yeah. I think Joey's probably the more athletic guy. The way Nahigian's moving around, and hopefully his kids have Joey's height. That's the biggest key. Huddy needs to grow.
Don't be. First off, baseball players come in all shapes and sizes.
I'm just saying.
Dustin Pedroia was like 5'8" and was the MVP of the league.
Whoa. Don't come down my road after you just ripped Nahigian for not having any athletic ability.
That's different.
And I'm just saying, hopefully they get mom's height as well as the athletic gene.
Well, this is what I would say. That's height discrimination.
That's height discrimination. Don't get so sensitive.
Don't make sweeping judgments about people because of their size.
I'm not making sweeping
Pedro
judgments.
Martinez online too.
I didn't make sweeping judgments. I
Don't
didn't say Huddy.
put words in his mouth.
And that's
Don't
exactly
do
what he's
that.
doing. And that's exactly what he's doing. Huddy's a hell of a pitcher. I don't care what size he is. I just said I hope he gets mom's height. As you said, you hope he gets mom's athletic ability. I'm not judging Matt Nahigian's athletic. Matt Nahigian may have been a great athlete.
I am judging his athletic
Well,
ability.
see, I'm not doing that. You're doing that.
I've seen.
I don't know. I think Nahigian could ball.
At what?
I think he could ball. Basketball, baseball,
Billiards?
football, gambling. I think he could ball.
He knows I love him.
David Lombardi does a great job. Niners insider for The Athletic. He's been down at OTAs. We love him here on the Morning Roast. As football season gets cranked up, we got OTAs. David, good morning, my man. How you doing?
David?
Good morning, guys. How are you?
We're good, man. We're just, trying to transition from the Golden State Warriors and what's going on with them, although Steve Kerr may get paid after next season. I know you're tapped in with that. We're out real quick, because you do love your basketball. I know you went up to Golden One during the playoff run. What's your thoughts on the Bob Myers and Joe Lacob presser and all that happened? Because you have a very good perspective on all sports.
Yeah.
I thought it was tense.
Really?
And it's just a pity because they've built something so great, and I still feel that if you have Steph Curry on your team, and I firmly believe that Steph Curry is playing the best basketball of his career. I still remember the very start of all this. He gets swallowed up by pressure. He wasn't quite strong enough to be a fully complete player. He's always been the greatest shooter, but as he's gotten that grown man strength, he's just such a pivot point and presence to build a team around. So, as long as you have this version of Steph Curry on your team, maybe you have him for 2 more years, 3 more years. I don't know how long his time is going to last, but as long as you have him there, I think that you've got a shot. And, for whatever reason, Bob Myers wanted to step down there. So I think that run, that union didn't last long enough.
God, David, you should be our basketball insider. I'm loving this
Don't
unique
tell David
angle.
That. Don't tell David that.
No, I'm loving
so he's going to
this.
start asking for somebody here. Don't tell him that.
What are you talking about?
The basketball stuff is crazy. I try to understand the cap stuff because
it's so nuanced.
I pride myself on my knowledge of the NFL cap. I read an NBA cap article and my brain just I have to turn off the phone at that point. So, I'm obviously Bob Myers had to be on top of all that. I'm sure he's got guys that are good at that too. But it's gonna be like walking a tightrope for the Warriors to rebuild this team, and the window is obviously closing. But I do think it's still open because you still have one of the best players in the world.
It's fascinating. They do have one of the best players in the world, and he gets tons of viral moments and people going crazy. I think the number one most clicked on thing, regardless, or commented thing on social media in passing, it isn't Steph Curry. It's the 49er quarterback. Like, whoever it is. David, you've been doing this for quite some time when it comes to the 49ers. It really is. It's crazy, isn't it? How much people really care. Like, every throw must be charted. Every uniform change must be charted. If a guy changes his face mask, like, you check the algorithms. Is there anything even close to 49er quarterback?
Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit last time, and I was trying to think of something else, and we couldn't think of anything. And there's so many interesting things about this team. They've got so many stars. They've built up such a nice roster. Yet everybody wants to talk about the quarterback position all the time. I mean, they signed Javon Hargrave this offseason, which was a huge, big fish signing. And I know he hasn't been at OTAs along with Nick Bosa, so maybe that's why he's not getting as much press. But it constantly reverts to that quarterback situation. And it's not just the quarterback situation. It's that, at least most of the louder fans don't view it the same way that the 49ers do. The 49ers are, truly looking at this holistically. They're going to let it play out organically. They want to arm themselves with as many options as possible because if you don't have a top 5 guy, that's the best you can do. You just, get yourself multiple darts to throw at the wall and hope that one lands, or at least one lands close to the bullseye. The problem is the general public is picking a guy and cheering him on.
Right.
And it creates this just like a food fight, food fight on social media. Everybody you talk to is like, oh, I like Brock Purdy. Oh, I like Jimmy Garoppolo. Why they let him go? Oh, I love Trey Lance, right? And now Sam Darnold's come in. I feel that he doesn't have nearly as many vocal supporters, but he's been with the team for the shortest period of time outside of Brandon Allen. So
how's he look?
He'll develop a little bit of a following if he starts a couple games.
How does he look, Darnold?
He's a really talented thrower. That's all that I can glean from watching them in shorts right now without pads on. Right. People are trying to make these sweeping judgments of every single throw, the problem that you just illustrated. But let's be honest, we're not going to be able to truly see anything until training camp. Right. And we know that Sam Darnold has an electric arm. Probably the most impressive physical play of his career came against the 49ers in 2020. That was the game where Bosa. Everybody got hurt.
Solomon Thomas, Raheem Mostert, Jimmy Garoppolo. Did
the tight end get hurt in that one too? Jordan Reed.
Oh yeah, Jordan Reed. Yeah, the turf, the MetLife turf was awful that day.
No, it's Met Death Stadium. But in garbage time, Darnold's in there and he rolls out to his left and he flips his hips as he's moving away from his natural throwing side. Flips his hips and just somehow fires a laser with a really, really quick release time to Braxton Berrios, who scores a touchdown. And in my opinion, that one play, just seeing him physically do that had a big effect on Kyle Shanahan because we know that he was interested in trading for Sam Darnold in 2021. They ultimately decided to make the trade up to number 3 to pick Trey Lance. But Kyle has talked about the physical potential that he sees in Sam Darnold. And I think that might even go back to 2018 when Darnold was coming out of the draft. You know who else really, really liked Sam Darnold is Frank Gore. Frank Gore was on that Jets team in 2020. And I talked to Frank Gore a little bit about this. He was at the 49ers facility a few weeks ago, and he brought Sam Darnold up on his own and kept on saying that's his guy. And the year with Sam really, really impressed Frank Gore. And, that's one of those things where guys who have actually been around him see the potential. He obviously hasn't delivered a full season of efficient football yet, but the 49ers' hope is that, he finished strong last year. He had a good run there at the end of the season, and they hope that if you plug him into the system, and the Carolina system was very similar to the 49ers, setting up yards after the catch and timing and all that. If you plug him into the system with Kyle Shanahan, he can play his best football. That's the bet the 49ers are making, and they've hedged that bet by also having Trey Lance on the team and by having Brock Purdy on the team.
David Lombardi from the Athletic Niners Insider here on the Morning Roast on 95.7 The Game. Does a great job covering the 49ers. He's been down at OTAs, especially during the second week as Sam Darnold, Trey Lance's alternated first-team reps. You brought up Javon Hargrave. You're going to love him. We had him on the Morning Roast a couple months ago. He has a really good personality, man. He's going to be a lot of fun on this football team. But Sam Darnold, there is something to say that he didn't have the weapons around him. Now, you could say the same thing about Trey Lance through 4 games. You talk about it, David. These sweeping proclamations through 4 games. What is your assessment of Trey Lance so far in OTAs and so far in his career? And I'm with you there. When it comes to shorts and jerseys and OTAs, we're not going to find anything out until training camp and the preseason football games. But so far, what have you seen from Trey? And what's your overall perspective on Trey Lance?
Well, the 49ers knew that he was this raw when they drafted him. They just didn't expect him to have 2 seasons derailed by injury. So you're kind of just in an awkward timing spot now where Trey Lance is he's obviously gotten to learn the playbook over 2 years, so it's not like he just stepped into the building for the first time. But he's obviously, as far as, because, they never questioned his intelligence. They never questioned his athleticism. What they knew that had to be worked on were the mechanics. And really, you can only work on mechanics in live situations or, some practice situations, obviously, but you have to carry it over into the game. And the injuries have really delayed that mechanical development that what was really needed for Trey Lance. So he's further along into his rookie contract than the 49ers anticipated he'd be at this level of mechanical development. And that's why the offseason of work with Jeff Christensen, who actually happened to be Jimmy Garoppolo's quarterback coach too, and I say that because we know Garoppolo has super fast release, and that's something that Lance has really needed to work on. That's why that work has been so significant. And that's why we're in this holding pattern now, because I have seen the mechanical improvements, but now I need to know if they're going to carry over into actual game action, right? And we're not going to find that out in May or in June or even probably in July. We're probably not going to find that out until maybe the preseason moving into the regular season. The 49ers will get hints and they'll get clues, and Lance will be able to position himself in this battle. But at the end of the day, he's got to do it when the bright lights come on of the regular season. And the clock is ticking for sure. So he's got a ton of potential. He's really smart, but he's raw mechanically. And this is the year with that deadline pressure looming that he's got to bridge all of his positive qualities with that mechanical gap. He's got to establish himself mechanically because he had so few reps in college.
How does the locker room feel about the quarterback situation, David?
I think they like all 3 of the guys personally. I think that they see that all 3 of the guys are really talented. The only one that's proven it over a longer stretch at this level, playing really efficient football, is Brock Purdy. So I think that in a football locker room, it's a meritocracy. Guys are naturally going to gravitate toward the player who's done it, which is, that's why the rhetoric is what it is. The leadership of the 49ers says the same thing. That's why Brock Purdy's the leader in the clubhouse. But nobody's saying that he's the unquestioned starter. I think in football there's an expectation that unless you're one of the top guys in the league at this position, that you're going to have a competition. Like in football, you compete. So I think that the locker room views it as every other position. They don't deify the quarterback position the way that outsiders are. Outsiders only want to talk about QB, only want to talk about QB. Well, the 49ers are saying, hey, we got a competition at running back too. We've got competitions on O-line, D-line, receiver, basically the whole roster.
Nickel.
I think they view the quarterback position at the same level as the rest of the roster, unlike fans, unlike the media, which is obviously focusing way more on QB.
Well, because you just alluded to all of that, does Brock feel any kind of pressure to return? Not that he's being reckless. I'm not going there, but does that change his timetable? Because his spot isn't necessarily written in stone, does that maybe give him extra motivation or more incentive or whatever to try to get back?
Well, yeah, I would. It's a complicated answer.
Yeah.
Yes, but rushing back would only hurt his chances of getting to what he wants. That is the fixture, right? So he's incentivized to come back at the correct speed.
Yeah.
And that is as fast as possible within the constraints of not pushing it too hard. And at that point, you just have to trust the baseball specialists who are working with Brock Purdy because, he's rehabbing with a baseball guy, Keith Coker, because it is an injury that's way more frequently seen in baseball. And as of right now, he might be a few days ahead of schedule. He just started throwing again this week. John Lynch said he was incredibly encouraged by that throwing session. And everything is going along the plan that we talked about 3 months ago when he first had the surgery. They said he's going to try to throw in 3 months, and he has. And then when he throws, we're going to have a firmer idea of when he'll come back. And they seem to have a firmer idea now. They're saying that training camp is possible. But that's obviously a big window between training camp and week 1 is what they're saying. But 3 months ago, they're talking about week 4 being the last possible, date in the window. They're not talking about week 4 anymore. So it seems to be going well in his recovery.
Last year, Jordan Mason comes out of nowhere. Burford relatively came out of nowhere. Deshaun Gibson, didn't see him becoming an impact player on this team. It's so early, but are there any randoms that on either side of the ball that look good to you?
Well, their top draft pick from this year, Jair Brown, has 4 interceptions already in OTAs. And he was the only player in college football that came out into this draft that had 10 interceptions over the past 2 years. So immediately you see a guy who obviously has a nose for the football. You have to have instincts to be able to rack up 10 interceptions at a power school in 2 seasons. And the fact that he's got 4, and Brandon Ayuk said that he dropped 1, so he could have had 5. He's in a position to get 5 picks. That to me is okay. And yesterday in 7-on-7s, he got a couple first-team reps. I don't think that he's going to be starting at safety to begin the season. I think Deshaun Gibson was really damn good last year. Obviously, Talanoa Hufanga earned All-Pro status last year, but the 49ers' long-term vision is to have a couple ball hawks at safety. They led the league in interceptions last season. This was just, 4 years after they had an NFL record low 2 picks in 2018. So they've obviously put focus on that. I think the future is Hufanga and Jair Brown at safety, and the present is going to be letting Deshaun Gibson, who's 33 years old, really shepherd Jair Brown into the mix. So you're going to see some 3 safety sets, and Jair Brown is kicking down the door so far. If he already has 4 picks, maybe 5, if he keeps on doing this in training camp, the 49ers are going to have to find a way to put him into some of those defensive formations. So for me, that's the guy that's really stood out so far.
How shocked were you to see Deebo Samuel at OTAs yesterday? I heard he looked good.
Yeah, he was up on the side. He was moving around. I mean, he's just so thick. He's got that.
Right.
He walks by you, and you're like, okay, I understand why defensive backs can't tackle.
Right.
Because he's moving faster than 4.5,
right.
or even if he's running 4.6 or 4.7, it doesn't matter because he's just this, a brick of muscle, and it's really this amazing comparative advantage that the 49ers have when they get him the ball in just a little bit of space, because he's a wrecking ball out there. So. I wasn't surprised to see him. He got his contract last year. OTAs aren't a big deal to these superstar veterans. In fact, it's sometimes they almost even a little bit better to create some room for coaching for the younger guys. That's, if OTAs were a huge deal, Nick Bosa would be there, because Nick Bosa lives, breathes, and eats football, and he doesn't have to be there. It's totally cool. I don't know why the Chargers needed Joey Bosa there this year, but to each their own. So. Debo,
to keep him from getting in fights with Philadelphia Eagle fans.
What about Eagle?
I said to keep him from getting in fights with Philadelphia Eagle fans.
Yeah, I remember that video. That was the week after he surprised Nick at
that's right,
at Levi Stadium against the Cowboys. That was a cool moment.
Yeah, no, he was in that same suite with Joe Montana right behind me, man, in my seats. Real quick, Brendan Ayuk. What do you expect for Brandon Ayuk in terms of production and a contract before we let you go? Because he's going to be due for an extension soon.
Yeah, so I think that it's very apparent that the 49ers have a relatively simple formula as to how they navigate the cap and contract extensions. And the cap typically grows every single season. There's only been 1 year where it went down in 2021 after COVID and all that. But so the cap typically grows. So theoretically, you have more room every year to spend. And the 49ers have shown that they're very intent on paying their own. The only guy they haven't paid that's an A-list player that, is a super, maybe not a superstar, but a star, is DeForest Buckner, but this regime didn't even draft him. Every single star that this Shanahan-Lynch regime has drafted who's been up for a contract extension, they have paid, and they fit under the growing cap. Now, to make that happen, they haven't re-signed the B-listers, guys like Charles Omenihu, obviously solid football player, not a star. Samson Ebukam, same thing. So they let these good football players, Jimmy Garoppolo, another good example, they let good football players who aren't quite, at that elite level, they let those guys walk, but they signed the A-listers. So Brandon Ayuk is right now in that contract year where I think that the objective and the mission for him is clear. He's coming off a 1,000-yard season, and it's time for him to prove to the 49ers that he is indeed an A-lister. And if he's an A-lister, they have room to pay him. they're going to do it. But their philosophy is if he's somewhere in between, they're not going to take that chance, right? So he's motivated right now, and he's on a trajectory to be an A-lister. He caught 2 deep touchdown passes yesterday, but he's got to prove it out on that field. And if he does, look out, because he's going to be part of that 49ers star power core.
All right, David Lombardi, everybody from The Athletic. We got to get you in studio soon and have a nice little roundtable going into training camp there. David, good stuff as always, man. Take care. We'll continue to read your reports at OTAs.
All right, thank you.
Anytime.
Thanks,
David
David.
Lombardi from The Athletic here on the Morning Roast.